Good afternoon. My name is Rena Drake, class of '88 and a graduate of the College of Health and Human Services. I'm currently serving on the UNH Alumni Association Board of Directors. The UNH Alumni Association serves as the bedrock of the UNH alumni community, fostering meaningful connections between alumni and UNH. We appreciate your time and encourage you to check the Alumni Relations website or your email inbox or social media for updates regarding your exclusive benefits as a fellow Wildcat. Today's webinar, presented by UNH Alumni Relations, is titled Overcoming Perfectionism, Embrace Progress, Not Perfection. Our featured presenter is fellow Wildcat Vanessa Bush, class of 2008. Vanessa is a sales and higher education professional with over 15 years of experience. Currently, she serves as the Director of University Partnerships at People Grove, higher education's first career access platform. Vanessa has earned both a BA in Communication and Spanish from UNH and an MED in Higher Education Administration from Northeastern University. Her book, Embracing Your Perfectionist Self, a satirical A to Z guide on finding comfort and inspiration in being good enough, is available now. And with that, I will turn it over to Vanessa.
Thanks, Rena, and hello, everybody. As Rena mentioned, my name is Vanessa Bush, class of '08, College of Liberal Arts at UNH. Really good to have you all here today to learn a little bit more about not only just my book that I've recently published, but also just how to, and I kind of laughed a little when you said overcome perfectionism, Rena. It's for me, it's more about how do I embrace sort of the central tenets of who I am as a perfectionist, wanting to strive for more, wanting to just try to be the best and be really ambitious, but manage that in sort of easier and more healthier ways. So with that, I'm going to be presenting today. So I have a couple of slides prepared for you all today, and I would love for this to be more of a conversation. So feel free to drop anything in the chat or in the Q&A box, and our team will help manage that throughout the presentation. I'll take probably about 20 to 25 minutes talking through the slides here with you all. Feel free, like I said, to drop any questions in at any time. But first, I would love if anyone could drop in the chat, where you're from, maybe your class within UNH, and sort of what brings you here today. If there's anything that's on your mind, would love to hear it, to keep it a little more interactive. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen. And I do want to announce as well that at the end of this presentation, and our team will help manage this as well, one lucky viewer today will be receiving a free copy, a paperback copy of Embracing Your Perfectionist Self. So really excited for that. All right. Cool. All right. Can I get if anyone can see my screen, give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Perfect. Love when technology works. Okay. So to start, and I love seeing all the check-ins here. Hello from so many different locations. I love it. Perfectionism has a lot of different meanings, right? We say it, and it could mean something like, criticism, self-doubt, anxiety, feeling like there's more black and white in life and not the gray areas, scared of embracing change, scared of the unknown, something that we have to win no matter what, have to be on top, can't make any mistakes at all. If we're doing too much and trying to strive a little, maybe too high, striving for impossible goals. I mean, all of this really gets at the heart of perfectionism and a lot of what I talk about in my book. And I personally wrote this just to give people a little bit of a background. I was mostly just tired of trying to be someone for everyone. That's sort of impossible, right? But we think it is. And it's sort of a fallacy. And, a lot of these things that I have, done in my life, trying to be perfect, have resulted in perhaps missed opportunities or misconceptions or missing out, things that I just don't want to do anymore. So I wrote it really because mental health is just really starting to, I think, come into its own as a central topic in conversations. It's starting to be something that's okay to discuss and chat about and share. And really, I want to be a good role model for my two sons. Already, I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, two boys. And my 4-year-old is starting to exhibit some of these sort of symptoms of perfectionism, lining up his trucks perfectly in a line and saying sorry when I feel like he shouldn't. So trying to really be a better role model for them and making sure that everyone knows that we're all in this together. There is nothing that is that serious or that is too much to overcome with a little bit of help. So meaning a lot of different things here, but as I define it in my book, perfectionism to me, and I took this from a source here, is a multidimensional personality disposition characterized by striving for flawlessness and setting exceedingly high standards of performance accompanied by overly critical evaluations of one's behavior. So we hear that, and I think, yikes, right? That's a lot, and it sounds pretty negative. So what can we do about that? A couple of common themes that I wanted to sort of focus on today, because my book does have quite a lot of chapters. If you had looked it up before this webinar, I do categorize each chapter into a different theme that either arises or seemingly contrasts with perfectionism. So ambition or being the best or control, or vulnerability, something we don't necessarily that first comes to mind. But, it's 26 chapters, all one letter of the alphabet to explore different themes. So I wanted to focus on 3 key areas here today. And I'm seeing some things in the chat. Yes, you need to be comfortable with boundaries. Michelle, I agree. I got to feel comfortable with getting uncomfortable, right? And making sure that that's okay with people, because it has to be. But 3 themes I really want to discuss here today is going to be self-criticism, that nagging doubt in ourselves. Why do we doubt what we know that we're good at or what we seem to know a lot about? We're really afraid to kind of let ourselves shine. And that fear of failure, for me, it's deeply rooted in making mistakes and feeling like we're going to be shamed or judged or found out, right? We hear a lot about imposter syndrome, right? It's not, I can't possibly be good at something, even if I'm doing it seemingly perfectly. Afraid of change, that's another big one. We don't like it when we can't control a situation, right? Or can't predict an outcome, and we appreciate easy predictability, right? Life just isn't like that though. And so we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm going to share a little bit and dive deeper into these 3 themes here today, and pulling a little bit of stats and data and some quotes from the book that I think are really relevant to these 3 areas. So with self-criticism and the bold here at the top, so these are, as I mentioned, the chapters that are alphabetical by theme. Imposter syndrome definitely comes to mind with self-criticism, right? Social media can make you doubt yourself a lot. Underestimate in Zoom, which I actually break down into that chapter, both the verb and the noun. So zooming, going a little too fast with things because we want to try to be perfect and efficient, but also because Zoom as a product, right, where we are right now, can make it intimidating sometimes. You see your own face a lot, can make you really kind of doubt, your flaws and zoning in on your reflection and how you present yourself. Even now, is my hair perfect over here? Who cares? It's okay. We're all human. But a couple of different other themes kind of arise within self-criticism. We often find ourselves afraid just to be who we think we are. I find that we are hiding behind a mask a lot. You'll find that's actually the central image and the cover image of my book. Masquerading as something other than what we truly are because we want to blend in. We want to be just like everybody else. And just compensating and feeling like we're underestimating ourselves constantly. No, I don't think I can do this. I know I can, but I don't want to let myself think that, right? And so just pulling out a couple of quotes here that I hope resonate with some people. And like I said, feel free to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A if this resonates with you. Um, I discuss in a couple of these chapters, right? And yet there's no actual proof or evidence usually to support feeling like an imposter, right? It actually robs us of being able to take credit for the hard work that we've actually done. So think of a time in your life, a time in your life where you doubted yourself and you felt like, oh my gosh, that is not me. To use a personal example, um, you know, even in as early as third grade, I grew up thinking, gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this grade. And you think a third grader thinking this is kind of crazy, right? But that's how I felt at the time. I didn't feel ready. I felt scared. I felt judged. Why was that? Even in high school, being told that I couldn't move to the next advanced level of math because no one's ever done that before. And while I did do that, and I did manage to get all A's in that advanced class, I still felt like I was doubting myself a lot. I was seeking validation from some outside source instead of trusting what's in here. I think it's more, and to answer Kim, I see you, there's a question here. What do you think are the cultural or societal factors that contribute to us all wanting to be on this webinar? Thank you for that. And deal with our perfectionism. I have so many thoughts on this. So some cultural ones, I think, especially in the Western world, there is that sort of narrative that we are taught that what you see is what you get. You have to present yourself perfectly. I think there's a lot of weight and judgment on how we look, the outward appearance. It tends to mean a lot. We get told things like, love the way you are, but then conflicting messages. Here's some other beauty products that can make you have a nice fuller lips, or your hair, let's dye it because we want to be like this color. There's just different narratives, I feel like, that are contributing to this sort of need to be perfect. I have to have my hair this certain way. I have to have the certain clothes. I have to present a certain way. I have to have a certain living situation. I have to have a certain family that looks a certain way. I have to have a job that people look at with with admiration. We're told and given these narratives in a lot of different ways. And I see we have another kind of follow-up question there. Why do we feel that way if there's no evidence of it? So great that you asked this. And I think it relates to some of these other quotes here. And I'm just going to read out one of them here. Perfectionists are prone to seeking attention, right, and validation for our own self-worth needs. And it behooves us to know how to use social media knowledgeably. This is about social media in particular, and in a way that protects us from the trolls and the misinformed. Or you can quit it altogether. And that says quite. But see, that's not perfect, and that's okay. I'm not going to freak out. I meant to say quit. I think, there's some deep-rooted feelings, and I think it goes back to the narratives that we're told starting from an early age. I know as a woman, I would read magazines and say, I'm not skinny enough, or I'm not blonde, or my face, my lips sort of droop a little bit, my eye twitches a little when I smile, and that's not perfect. And I never felt normal growing up, and that kind of stayed with me and contributed to a lot of different things, like eating disorders. I'm very open about it now, but if you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, nope, that didn't happen to me. And I think it's just, for me, it was just being uncomfortable in my own skin because I kept being told that narrative over and over and over. TV, media, movies, even the news, anything that you see, I didn't feel like I was accurately represented with who I was or who I felt like I wanted to be. And I think those narratives really do create that anxiety, even if there is no direct evidence of feeling like an imposter. Early in my career, I felt like I was not a salesperson. I felt like I was more shy. And yet I was making quota and exceeding quota time and time again, year in and year out for 4 or 5 straight years in that particular role before I moved on to higher ed. And I thought, well, I'm not a real salesperson though, right? Because that looks different. And so even though there's no actual evidence to support the fact that I felt like I wasn't an actual salesperson, I think it's because my mind goes back to, well, salespeople are pushy. Or salespeople are like car salesmen where, they're always trying to get the sale and they're not thinking about the person. And so for me, it was coming back to, what are the generalizations that we're told and that we see, and it's us trying to validate that, when in reality, it's so much more gray than black and white. So thank you for that question. And I think it goes back to some of these quotes as well, for both the problem and the solution, right? And I think I see another question here. You've always been super laid back, started a new job and find myself worrying more, doubting, seeking perfect behaviors. Oof, yes. Have any advice for a new perfectionist? That's a great question. I would say new or old perfectionist, the advice that I have is the same. Right here. If you're both the problem, but also the solution, because we are, rectifying underestimating, which I think you're doing here in this scenario, right? You have a new job and find yourself doubting, maybe feeling like you don't deserve to be there. Maybe you don't feel qualified. But rectifying that really starts with being cognizant of the issues at hand. Ask yourself, go through those motions and say, why do I feel this way? I am powerful and capable. I did get here for a reason. I'm assuming that when you started that new job, you made it through some sort of interview process. You were selected for a reason. You beat out other candidates for a reason, and have faith in that. So we are powerful and capable, and take action and ownership on that. It's okay to tell yourself, I am good at something. We shouldn't feel like we have to excuse it. And recognizing that what you see virtually, again, going back to the Zoom, because I'm doing this now, what I see virtually isn't necessarily the real thing, and that screen time shouldn't replace FaceTime. That's my personal belief. I don't feel that screen time should really ever replace FaceTime. FaceTime is so important. I was a communication major at UNH, right? And learned a lot about social cues and how you interpret actions and behaviors according to body language, emotions, eye contact, all of that matters. Not to say that screen time is not wonderful in its own ways, but there are definitely some drawbacks to that. So what you see on Instagram and somebody posing with a nice little pumpkin in their family and their pumpkin patches, maybe they're having a hard day, or maybe that's not always the case. So it's just knowing that we are all in this together. No one has a perfect life, right? So don't criticize yourself so much. You got this. All right, fear or failure. This is a big one. Control, failure, and mistakes are the 3 chapters where I'm going to pull out some of these quotes and these recommendations. But that fear of failure, I think for me, was being afraid to open up. I felt that and I'm still exploring why, but I felt that if I made a mistake or I failed at something, it was tragic, right? And I wasn't good at something, or wasn't allowing myself to revel in the mistake, get to know what it was that I was trying to achieve, and maybe iterating on that. Just because I failed that one time doesn't mean I'm going to consistently fail. And failure doesn't have to be a bad word. In my book, I start that chapter by saying failure feels like a dirty word. It feels almost like a swear word. You mutter it, you say, ooh. Instead of winning or failing, it's winning. To me, it's winning and learning. And we use that a lot actually in my job too. It's not failing because there's no end point. You're simply just exploring a way that didn't work out very well, that we need to iterate on or need to try again. It's okay to not get it right on the first try, but some common themes that kind of arise here with the fear of failure is that being afraid of opening up and hesitant to embrace the unknown or try something new because we feel like we might fail, right? If we try something new, it might not work out. And that seems scary. And trying to avoid dealing with our fears or challenges head on. Sometimes perfectionists will sweep things under the rug, right? It's all perfect here, but underneath it all, you're hurting. There's something more there that we're not sharing with people because why? We might feel that it means that we're not worthy or important or loved. And those are key human needs, right? We want to feel worthy. We want to feel that we're worthy of being here. We want to feel important. We want to feel loved. These are simple things that all humans, for the most part, really want. And so I feel like that fear of failure is getting at that. Another question here in the chat, why do you think it gets easier as we get older to feel less worried about pleasing everyone? I think it comes with time and wisdom. And I'm just going to click over to the next slide here and pull out some quotes, but I am, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I am nearing my 40s and I'm not scared about that at all. I am not someone that is scared of aging. Maybe just because my mother tended to age well. So everyone says I look like her. But that being aside, I'm not afraid to be who I am anymore. And I think it gets easier as we get older, because with life experience, you learn over time that it is an impossible task. Uh, being perfect or being that someone for everyone is not actually possible. And that's okay. That it should be that way because we actually are different individuals. It's when we're taught that when we're young, right? That individuality matters, that diversity matters. Somehow along the line, as we get a little bit older into our youth and teens, we sort of forget that message. We want to be normal. We want to be the same as everyone. We want to blend in. And suddenly that early narrative of being yourself and being unique goes away and is shunned almost. And again, those societal and cultural expectations and that those narratives that are shared, I think really impact that. But with getting older, it's time. I think for me, it was having kids. That's honestly when I recovered, if you will, from an eating disorder that lasted about 14 years for me. So I suddenly felt like it's not about me anymore. It's for something greater, something bigger than me. And I no longer cared. It wasn't an overnight switch, by the way. It took a better part of a year to figure this out. But I realized it wasn't just, it's not about my own vain needs. It wasn't about what I thought people wanted. It was about, managing my expectations with reality and saying that people aren't thinking, they meet me and say, wow, I don't think she's, skinny enough. I think that we can't be friends. That doesn't actually happen. But in my head, I was reading something from the chat, which I'll answer in a second. In my head, that's the narrative I told myself. But Kim, to answer your question, I think it's just life experiences, being exposed to a lot of different things in our lives and realizing over time that there's a theme here. We cannot please everyone. Everyone's different, but that's okay. We shouldn't please everyone. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have really impactful conversations and be ourselves. So that's my honest answer there. I see there's another question in the chat here. What says, I think my mother, who is still a perfectionist, mine certainly is, affected me in a negative way. I hear that. I'm 56 and she still comments on my appearance and clothes. Yep. It's much easier in my 50s, but it is so hard. It's so important to feel comfortable in your own skin. It can take practice, but it can be done over time. I agree. We are worthy without having to prove it with clothes and appearance. I agree, Amy. So shout out to you. I appreciate that. And kudos for sharing. I come from the same sort of environment. I think my mother was not necessarily a perfectionist herself, and neither was my father. But it was the sort of cultural expectations that I grew up in. So it was my environment. The town that I grew up in was very focused on achieving and striving and wearing all the right things, having the perfect home and presenting that outward appearance of being perfect. So I think that for sure affected me in a very negative way. And with regards to what you can do with when people comment on that, I think when they say that, it obviously comes from a place of hurt from them, not you. So recognizing that, I think, is the start, and saying, really, it shouldn't matter. I know that it kind of does sometimes, but I always try to just think of that person must be coming from a world of hurt to feel as if they need to judge or make judgments or comments that are negative on my appearance. With regards to the age, I think that does make a little bit of a difference. I think there was a time back, Amy, when your mother was probably growing up, where that narrative was ingrained, maybe even more so. And we've seen all those old magazine ads, right, of, the woman who was smiling with an apron, putting a perfect loaf in the oven, or, managing their family and home life so perfectly. I think there's a reason for obviously her comments. I think it's coming from a very deep rooted belief that your appearance mattered a lot. It told the world who you were. And that's not necessarily the same thing today. It's not necessarily the same truth. So But kudos to you for realizing that it can be done over time and trying to get over it and not it affect you. But it's okay, honestly, if it does. Owning that feeling. To kind of get some of these other quotes here, I just want to read, your anxiety and need to control the situation won't impact what will actually happen. I had a therapist tell me this, and I thought it was the most mind-blowing thing. I worry a lot still. I'm working on it. But, I think the reason why I feel the need to control the situation is because then I can at least, if I can manage and get ahead of the outcome, I will be in a better place. Usually when that happens, though, I just end up spiraling out of control, usually for no reason. It kind of goes back to the whole imposter syndrome idea where there's no evidence to support that. So my anxieties are kind of running rampant, need to rate it in. And when she said that, I thought, wait, so if I worry a lot, that won't make a difference? She's like, no, you don't get rewarded for feeling anxiety. It doesn't excuse, if you worry a lot, it doesn't mean it won't suddenly happen because you were rewarded for worrying so much. It won't actually have anything to do with what actually happens. I thought that was super powerful. I had a life coach that I talked to and interviewed for the book tell me this little nugget. Failure and success are two sides of the same coin. And I want to take a little more time with this one. Success is defined because of what it is not. In other words, the journey to finding out the way forward, which can sometimes be a painful, embarrassing, and frustrating process, is a necessary step to achieving success. How many times do we know anyone that achieved success their first go around? I don't think I really know anyone that has done that. They've iterated, they've challenged themselves. We just don't hear those narratives often, but we should. But I thought that was a really nice image, that failure and success are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. You can't have failure without success. You can't have success without failure. And it's okay. Failure should not be a bad word. And touching on emotional agility, these skills are an antidote to this sort of paralysis. This stating your fears out loud actually helps diffuse them. Like I used in an earlier example, oh, if I'm not skinny, therefore someone won't be my friend. Is that really the reason? I don't think so. So stating that out loud. Next comes accepting reality, right? Realizing that's really not true. There's no evidence to support that. And then acting my values. Being healthy matters. Staying here matters. Being me matters. All right. And then the final one here. I want to wrap up and give some time for questions and other comments, although you guys have been great putting them into the chat. So thank you. Afraid of change. This is a big one. So within my book, I talk about this mostly in the discover and vulnerability chapters. It's that fear of being okay to try something different. We get nervous about that. We're afraid to sort of step outside your comfort zone to truly discover who you want to be. That might not be what first comes to mind. Might not be what your mom or dad or whoever told you to be. Vulnerability is not a negative quality. And I don't want to understate that. When I was first doing research for the book, I was having a little bit of trouble coming up with a V theme, if you will, for the book, for that chapter. I thought vulnerability, but that's like a perfectionist's worst nightmare, right? I don't want to be vulnerable and show everybody what's here or what's inside. That's scary because if I expose too much of myself, will people judge me? Will they shame me? And it's actually a superpower. And we'll dive into that in just a second. But change is constant. So we really have to adapt and be resilient. There's nothing that we can do to prevent change. It will happen whether we want it or not. So just to share a couple of quotes here that might resonate with folks. When I gave myself permission to try new things and stop boxing myself into what I thought I was supposed to do, I quickly became this person who had more fun. Being okay with living life in the messy middle ground. That's where everybody else was hanging out anyway. I had someone that actually, and I can't honestly remember who, but that's fine. Someone come up to me while I was still a student at UNH and said, gosh, you're like really fun. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, I saw you this weekend and like, yeah, you're a lot of fun. Like just so much fun. And I just wouldn't have thought that. I said, well, why? They said, well, you're so studious, and you always are the first to volunteer an answer in class, and, really very hard worker. It's very clear. I said, well, why can't I be both? Why can't I just be the person that is both smart and fun? Why does it have to be either or? I, for a long time, thought that I couldn't be social. I had to be studious, and that was more important to me. And so I felt like I had to pick. And then having that person say that to me made me realize that maybe I should be a little bit more, not change who I am, right? But just be okay with not having to be that perfect studious one all the time. And I see another person in the chat here that's gotten that same remark before. Yes. Why can't I, why do I have to be, fun, and only fun, right? Why can't I just be fun and smart? I think those two things can go with each other. And then we're continuously learning, growing, and changing, whether or not we consciously notice it. If we don't like something, we have the power and permission to change it. We do, nobody else. I want that to be not understated, right? I want that to be something you guys take away from this, that we are the owners of our own futures, how we want to live our lives. That's up to us. That might get influenced by other, family, friends, colleagues, possibly media, but you are the one, you're in the driver's seat when it comes to deciding who you want to be. And life is going to change whether we want to or not. So it's all about, and I see another comment in the chat here from Jennifer, any role models that I would follow or read their books, How to Achieve a Healthy Balance. Yes. I think this is the last quote here kind of resonates and has to do a lot with Brene Brown. I'm not sure if some people are aware of who that is. Please look her up. It's not Renee, it's Brene with a B, Brene Brown. She's amazing. I did a lot of research with her, and she has some great thoughts on vulnerability, and I use some in actually in the book. But people don't want you to be perfect, turns out. Crazy, right? They want you to open up and share things that might be difficult or personal, but also real. And I think that goes back to that person who said to me when I was in college, right, that I was fun. They didn't expect it. They don't want me to be perfect. I don't need to keep up this facade of trying to have it all together. I can actually share that I might use a wrong dance move or fall down or, say something silly, but it's okay, because that's just being human. It's embracing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. Letting others in, showing them that you're human, i.e. not perfect, provides them really with the confidence and the autonomy to share their own struggles and stories. So by us sharing vulnerable parts of our lives, makes space and room for others to do the same. And when we're all sharing this, it becomes a stronger narrative. It becomes something that can be switched out from that narrative that we used to hear of, you need to have it all together. You need to look appropriate and perfect, whatever that looks like. We can start to replace that narrative with something that's healthier, managing it in better ways. I see another question here. Social media is so rough for my teenage girls. Oh, I can imagine. I'm very glad that I got to college at a point when Facebook was only just starting. Thank goodness. I try to coach them along, but they are seeing constant images of their peers that look like they're leading a perfect existence. Ooh, yes, it is definitely not true. Curious what you think about teens these days. Yes, highly recommend reading the social media chapter actually in the book. It has a lot to do with this. It was rough for me growing up, and I didn't have social media until I got to college. So I can only imagine how tough that is. But I think these days, learning and understanding that what they see that is curated on the internet isn't actually real life. They're staging it, right? They're perfecting it. They're showing the best side of what actually is happening and going on. Someone posting, like I said earlier, someone posting an award that they got, or having really a lot of fun. I'm hanging in New York City, having the best life. Maybe they didn't last week. Maybe they're escaping and avoiding something else. There's always another side to the story. It's totally okay not to have it all together. In fact, I wish we would see more of shots of, this is me just having a bad day. And I don't really, it is what it is. We post the good, and not necessarily the bad. And that needs to be told more. So if you're, if you follow, social media, my social media at all, I'm all about not looking like things are perfect. Like my kids are running rampant. My house is a mess. It just is what it is. And it doesn't matter because it doesn't lead others to believe that my worth is any less than theirs. So I appreciate that question. I think, if they're going to be on social media though, follow, Elise Myers, Elyse Myers, Myers. I think she is amazing. She is Hot Mess Express, new mom, came out of nowhere, on TikTok, on Instagram, everywhere. She has anxiety and is very, very much open about it. Doesn't wear makeup, doesn't worry about what her background looks like. She's just real. And I appreciate that so much. And she has so many followers because I think it resonates. It's a message that really, really resonates with people, because she isn't perfect. Nobody is. Just wanted to put up a little blurb, this just about my book here. I'll just read it here really quick. At just 8 years old, 8-ish, can't honestly remember when I said this, but I do remember saying to my parents, if it were a perfect world, pencils wouldn't need erasers because we wouldn't make mistakes. Honestly, I probably should have gone to therapy right then. But at such a young age, why did I feel that mistakes were always bad? How can the narrative be changed so that future generations don't feel shame, guilt, and the need to be perfect, but supported, loved, and celebrated? So rather than overcoming or eliminating it completely, I feel like it's a condition that can be better understood and harnessed in more productive ways, as I hope you've seen a little bit. And it's really meant to give others inspiration, useful techniques for their daily lives. So as I said earlier, I use each letter of the alphabet as a chapter guide to explore different themes, and using a mix of personal stories, research, and interviews, trying to share the wisdom of those that came before us, and trying to make sure that my readers and everyone that that knows me knows that good can be good enough. Perfect doesn't have to be good enough. Good can be good enough. So wanted to really just lend that kind of expertise and that guidance on how to stop resisting and start embracing your perfectionist self. And I see a couple more questions here in the chat. Have I seen perfectionism have a negative impact on relationships? Absolutely. With my personal experience, as I mentioned, I had an eating disorder for so long. And my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, also a '08 alum, he recognized, I was very honest about it very early on. And he was like, okay. I was like, you're not scared by that? He's like, everyone has their thing. So it didn't impact that negatively ultimately, or at least at first, but there were definitely moments where it strained our relationship. It honestly almost brought us apart because of my very intense need to be validated by my appearance, even though I had someone that clearly loved me for me, who was here and up here. I thought that what you saw was more important. So I was very frustrated for a long time. And he said, you know what? You kind of have to figure this out. I can't do this for you. This is your journey and really need you to figure it out. And it wasn't until we just honestly just decided to have kids that we started having that conversation that I thought, wow, this is not about me anymore. And I definitely sought professional help for it. I think it depends. Everyone has a different comfort level. Therapy might work for some. It did for me in some ways and didn't, because ultimately I knew what I needed to do. I just needed help getting there. So sometimes having a buddy system works, being someone that is open and honest and getting you to act on what you believe you need to do to not get over it. I feel like I'm still a perfectionist, but embracing it in a healthy way. Another question, do I have any examples of when I let go and it led to a positive outcome? Yeah, for sure. I was actually talking to the panelists earlier. I did a presentation about my book earlier this year at Northeastern, which is where I received my master's. And I was delayed. The train was not cooperating. I was going to be late. And that to me said, late is rude, unprofessional, and people are going to judge me for it. I immediately then turned it around and said, wait, it is not my fault. There's really nothing I can do at this moment. I couldn't actually get out of the train, so I can't make anything go faster. Just texted the person that was helping host it with me, said, hey, this is what's going on. Let's maybe have people start eating, and then I will come and speak as soon as I can, but just tell them to be patient, and this is life. And as soon as I got there, that's how we opened up the conversation, and everyone loved it. I said, I'm so glad that you're embodying what you're preaching. That, yeah, life isn't perfect. I couldn't do anything. I was on the train. I tried to go and take an earlier one, and luck would have it that there was a fire on the tracks. Nothing I can do. And it really helped, I think, resonate with the audience a lot more, seeing that I was putting into practice what my book was all about. So there definitely are some positives to it. I said, yeah, I was late for stuff, and it's not my fault. You're right. Another question here, what strategies and techniques do I use to cope with the anxiety and stress in the moment? Oof. I will say that CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, I discuss it a little bit in the book as well, really helps. It's really cognitively thinking through what your thoughts are and questioning that and saying, well, why am I nervous? Why do I feel this way? What is leading me to believe that this is true? Maybe it's not. Journaling helped for a long time for me. There's things called bullet journals as well to kind of help organize yourself. And while I don't personally use it, I do talk about it a little bit in the book. There is an individual that I interviewed where she uses it and finds a lot of value in that. It helps categorize what sort of needs to get done today versus could get done tomorrow. I think it's just, for me, talking to people helps. Talking, whether that's therapy, whether that's discussion forums. Facebook is great for that reason, or seeking other resources like other books, other collateral on the topic, just talking about it. I'm always here. So send me a message, happy to chat. How do I differentiate between setting high standards for yourself and falling into a trap? Yeah. I would say this kind of goes back to Jennifer's question about seeking professional help. I think the line is drawn when it starts to negatively affect your relationships or your job or your mental health, physical health as well. So if those high standards are not working for you in one of those ways, where it's getting in the way, that is definitely that trap, I would say, of those high standards not working for you. And so it's getting you used to practicing that narrative feedback. What is this doing for me? Is it good to have goals? You bet. Is it good for them to be high, just want to strive for? Absolutely. Is it good for me to sacrifice my mental health, my sanity, my anxiety, my physical health to reach those goals? No. So I think you have to make that differentiation and say, what am I missing by trying to achieve that? Or what am I compensating for by trying to achieve that? And am I giving up my health? Am I giving up my relationships? Am I giving up my job, my focus, or my passion, whatever it might be? So yeah, that's what I would say in terms of that differentiation. As someone who studies anti-racism work, perfectionism is a characteristic of white supremacist culture. Yeah, being perfect keeps white people in power. When I learned this, I learned how harmful my own perfectionism could be for people of color, and it changed the way I look at my own perfectionist behaviors. Good for you. Highly recommend looking into this concept. Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely something, like I said, it's these narratives that are very, very early on in humanity were ingrained in us. And even that fear of mistakes or failure could even be a little bit traced back to when humans were roaming the earth, as honestly as Neanderthals. It could mean eating the wrong plant or making a mistake there, or making a mistake on turning a different path and suddenly encroaching into another tribe's territory could mean literally the difference between life and death. So I think that there's sort of that fight or flight mechanism, that very old rooted in early humanity, that is still with us. We just apply it in ways that really it shouldn't be, right? We're scared and nervous about making a mistake and get, heart palpitations, or our palms get sweaty. It's those innate responses to those different scenarios. that we deal with now. So the response hasn't changed, but the scenarios have. So being mindful of that, questioning it when it does happen. Is this being posted somewhere later? Yes. I think our panelists here who are helping me present, Rena and Jennifer, this will be posted on the YouTube channel, as I understand it, after we wrap up today. I believe this will also be sent to all of the attendees. And the book is online. Yes. Let me move ahead here. Oh, this is just the chapter listing if anyone was curious. All of the A through Z topics that I discuss within the book. Thank you, Jen. Yes, it'll be posted on the UNH Alumni Relations YouTube page for everyone. So that's great. Happy to get in touch with anyone at any time as well. The book is online. It is on Amazon as an ebook at the moment. And I just recently received the copies here, the paperbacks. So excited to share that with you all soon. Those will be going live within the next week. Yeah, it's exciting, but yeah, I will put up a little bit more about me, how you can reach me as well. Happy to chat anytime. I understand this is a very sensitive topic for some, or perhaps for everybody in different ways. So I'm happy to chat personally to anyone that wishes to get in touch. No questions, a silly question for sure. All right. Yeah, cool. I hope this was helpful for everybody. Jen and Rena, do we have any final comments?
Thank you so much, Vanessa. This was great. It's so many questions. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Yes, we will have this on the UNH alumni YouTube channel, which I have posted in the chat. If anybody wants the link, it usually takes a few days to get up there, but it will be there if you want to share it with anyone or see any of the content again. And we really hope that you will continue to check out our social media and the UNH Connect website, which is at unh.edu/alumni for future programming coming up either online or in person near you. So thanks so much, Vanessa, and thanks everybody for watching today.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was fantastic.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. I hope so. It's only helpful if it helped others. So I'm glad to hear it. Like I said, I'm available for questions anytime. You can reach me at my personal website, and my email is linked there. That's my work email, but feel free to hit me up there. Also on LinkedIn. The book, if anyone is interested in the book in particular, to get a hard copy. I personally love hard copies. I love a good Kindle, but I do appreciate a hard copy. Let me know. You can always send me a direct message as well, or get in touch with Jen and Rena here, and they'll forward you to me. And I'm happy to put you on the list to secure a paper copy when those do become available. But we will be raffling off one copy to an attendee today. So a lucky individual will get a paperback copy very soon. So excited for that. Yeah, I think you can also reach out to me too. I know that UNH is a member of the People Grow family. It's the company I work for. It's called Wildcat Connections. And that you can find me on that platform as well. And if you don't know how to log on, just send me an email and I'll help you out.
Great. Thanks so much, Vanessa. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks. Yeah, remember, good is good enough, everyone. We got this. Have a great day, everybody.